The Kodiak Island archipelago lies just over 200 miles to the south of Anchorage and a little more than 2,000 miles to the north of Hawaii. Kodiak is the second largest island in the U.S. Only the island of Hawaii is larger. Land formations on Kodiak appear strikingly similar to Hawaii, but that is where the comparison ends. A strong marine influence delivers unpredictable, inclement weather. The abundant rainfall creates lush vegetation whose nutrients are washed into the sea, attracting millions of salmon to hundreds of streams. It is a fisherman's paradise. Because of salmon, Kodiak is one of the largest fishing ports in the world in terms of dollar value.
Oh, perfect. We'll see you in a few, Charlie.
Walter Sargent has been fishing these waters for most of his life.
You could fish anywhere, but there's traditional areas where salmon travel.
The salmon come from the ocean by the millions to begin the migration back upstream to spawn. Before making the run, they congregate. Purse seiners position themselves on the capes, actually lining up to take turns catching the fish. Once they deploy their nets, it does not take long before they pull them tight and begin hauling the purse back to the boat.
It's a pretty deep bag. I can see him down there.
This is all silvers and reds.
I know it.
This northeast blew him in.
The skiff serves two purposes. It deploys the net and then keeps the boat from drifting over it during the pull. This is a fabulous catch, well over 1,000 fish. Once a salmon boat hauls in its catch, it will go to the back of the line and wait to take another turn. It is an operation that goes on most of the day, every day, while the run lasts. Before season's end, more than 25 million pounds of salmon will be caught in these waters. That's a lot of hard work. The life of a fisherman in Kodiak is both demanding and rewarding. It is not uncommon for a salmon boat crew to work 18 hours a day. In recent years, the reward for that hard labor has not paid the dividends it once did. Farmed salmon has driven the price of fish down and forced many fishermen out of business. Uzinki is an ancient Aleutic fishing village. The landscape here reflects a blend of cultures that began when Russians first integrated with native people in the 1700s. Fishing villages like Uzinki once thrived on the annual salmon run, but the low price of fish and high price of fuel have changed life here.
I just got out of it. I just couldn't make it. So here I sit on the beach now doing nothing, watching and hoping those guys out there are doing okay and getting a reasonable price. But they're not. I know they're not.
Many of Uzinki's young people are moving off the island and finding jobs elsewhere, severing a tradition of generations. Walter Sargent says fishermen are learning it is best to be diversified, to work multiple fisheries, because while the price of salmon is down, other fisheries continue to do well. Halibut comes into Kodiak by the boatloads. Millions of pounds are sent through the processing plants each season. Whether it's halibut, cod, salmon, or crab, working this area is not for fair weather fishermen. They toil in all kinds of conditions. Diana McDonald has been doing this since she was 14. It is a cold, drizzly day, and yet the crew is on deck making repairs, preparing for the next trip to sea.
If we have something to repair on the boat, there's no time for lunch, there's no time for anything. You have to get it fixed because you got to get back out there and fish.
A season only lasts so long, and they must make the most of it and hope the trip is worth it. Sometimes it is not, but those who fish the Kodiak area say they would not trade it for anything. Kodiak Island is rugged and for the most part undeveloped, a spectacular wilderness. and one of the best ways to see it is by air. Bush pilots know nearly every inch of the some 3,500 square miles that make up the island. We are headed over the center of the island to Fraser Lake near the southern end of Kodiak. We have heard of an area where we might get a good look at some Kodiak bears, the biggest brown bears in the world. Kodiak bears are grizzlies, but much larger than an inland grizzly. When an adult male is up on its hind legs, it can stand 10 feet tall and weigh as much as 1,500 pounds.
The reason that they've gotten so big is they have such an incredibly rich food source. Salmon, like you see down there, grass, berries, just a whole lot of stuff in one small place.
During the salmon run, Kodiak bears gorge themselves on fish.
At the peak of the season, we're looking at about 40 pounds a day. They can eat 20 to 40 pounds a day. An average bear will gain 3 pounds a day during the course of the summer season. So that's quite a bit of food.
There is a dramatic difference in the fishing technique between a young bear that expends a lot of energy chasing fish and an adult bear with a more deliberate style. Very little effort is needed to target, pounce, and score. When fattening up on salmon, many bears have discriminating palates. They'll eat only the eggs because salmon eggs are high in fat, and that'll serve the bears well as they hibernate for the winter. What is left of the discarded fish is not wasted. Salmon provides for many living creatures on Kodiak. It is unknown how the bears first got to the island, but they have been separated from other bear populations for thousands of years. No matter what their origin, centuries of isolation may have caused them to evolve into a unique subspecies.
We've got about 3,000 bears here in the archipelago, and from all indications, all of our research and everything else we've done, it indicates that the population is stable to actually increasing a little bit.
For so many bears to live in such close proximity is remarkable.
People will say bears are unpredictable. In fact, bears have developed a social system. They've developed a language. They've developed a way to live with each other. So you can have a whole bunch of big, dangerous animals at one spot like this. Otherwise, they'd be fighting all the time.
One reason they are able to coexist is the abundant food source. There is more than enough for the entire population, and man can take credit for some of the bounty in this area.
Here at Fraser, we've got a river, but it's got two major falls on it, places that salmon cannot get up, especially this one right here. Above these falls is Fraser Lake and a number of tributaries.
Tributaries that did not hold salmon before a clear passage was constructed. Building a fish ladder not only established a salmon fishery in the upper lakes, but also provided a new food source for bears, who have since learned there is almost always salmon up against the weir going across the river. The weir blocks the salmon from advancing until the gates are opened.
We have a certain target escapement for the health of the lake. Not too few, not too many, and so we enumerate them, and then when we reach our escapement, we close the fish pass.
They also run a number of tests on the fish that move through the gates. A random sample of some 80 fish every day during the run includes data on length, weight, and skin properties, which allows Fish and Game to closely monitor the health of each species. Salmon is so important to life here. Fishermen voluntarily tax themselves to fund a successful hatchery program here at Katoy Bay. The hatchery is run by the Kodiak Regional Aquaculture Association.
The hatchery here produces surplus salmon for the commercial net fishermen and to a lesser degree for the sport fishermen and the subsistence fishermen.
They are raising the salmon from eggs to juveniles, and they are beating the egg to juvenile survival rate in the wild by large margin. As salmon reach the freshwater estuaries, they stop feeding and enter into their spawning mode. Katoy Bay Hatchery has diverted the fish into holding nets where chosen broodstock begins to ripen.
And actually, if this hatchery wasn't here, fish would build up here like this and school up in this estuary area, and then as they ripened and the time to spawning came, they would ascend to fresh water.
At just the right time, the hatchery ladders are opened, tricking the fish into thinking they are going upstream to spawn. But these are artificial spawning grounds. 2,000 to 3,000 fish a day receive electroanesthesia, making them easier to handle on the tables where they are sorted.
On the chums here, we normally require about 30,000, 35,000 adults, and we generally produce right now around 350 to 400,000 adults off of that.
Different ratios for each species. With pink salmon, they will take less than 200,000 fish for brood stock, but that will translate into 6 to 7 million fish. Eggs are taken from the females, milk from the males, and then the eggs and sperm are mixed.
Once they're fertilized, they're rinsed a couple times with fresh water to make sure they're clean. We add some betadine solution to disinfect the eggs, and then after 1 hour of water hardening where they absorb the water and disinfectant, then they're placed in the incubators.
This incubator has roughly 500,000 eggs. Most will hatch, and not long after, the fry will be taken out to sea, providing a constant source of fish.
This extra production has been an economic cushion for the commercial fishermen to allow them to harvest extra pounds of fish that normally wouldn't be here.
Roughly 30% of the salmon caught in the Kodiak area originate at the Katoy Bay rearing facility. And the close proximity of Katoy Bay and the processing plants means the fish are delivered fresh, and that translates into a high-quality product. The Katoy Bay Hatchery, Alaska Fish and Game, and fishermen of Kodiak have learned to work together to make the system successful. Folks working the fishery and processing plants here on Kodiak Island work hard for their money. So when it comes time to rest, what do they do for fun? Well, they fish. And when they're not fishing, they enjoy the fruits of their labor. Many of the homes in Kodiak have a smokehouse in the yard. These guys are cutting and sorting some salmon that was cured in a salt solution before being smoked for a week with beech cottonwood.
Then what you wind up with is what the natives call squaw candy. And it's a hard, semi-dry fish. It's not too salty. It's just the way we like it.
Participants in the annual Kodiak Eco Challenge may be packing some of that squaw candy. The grueling 2-day obstacle course includes running, biking, and rafting over some of Kodiak's roughest terrain.
Just a relay from Checkpoint 9. They reported that CH-195 arrived checkpoint 9 at 1428.
Each team is given a compass, first aid kit, GPS, and maps.
Hi, everybody.
Vanish.
Most teams cover 28 miles the first day, 15 more the second day.
The last team didn't even make it to the overnight spot at the 12-hour mark.
Each new leg of the course remains a secret to the 4-person teams until they reach a checkpoint.
Rock in the pond. Find your number on your passport. Follow directions from passport control to locate your rock in the pond.
Here's a pond. And look at, there's rocks right there. Oh, there's the number 8. We want 3. Okay. 3. Oh, see it?
Let's go.
Each team has a support crew to help change the gear and provide food and water, but the crew is only allowed at certain checkpoints. Team Vanish is a 2-man, 2-woman team preparing for the next leg of the course.
How you guys making out so far?
Doing really well. We're in first place. We've been going all day. Right now, all we're interested in doing is getting fuel and getting to the next checkpoint.
Their instructions are to run up the Chiniak Highway for a couple of miles where it becomes obvious what is next. They must slip into survival suits and are required to swim in bone-chilling water across the bay to the Coast Guard station.
You'll come out your face, okay? Go like that. This is how we do it.
Survival suits are a common piece of gear up here, especially for fishermen.
Okay, you're faster than I am, Wendy.
Fall into the water here in Kodiak or around Kodiak or in Alaska, and your survival time is not very long without a survival suit. The survival suit helps to insulate you, helps to keep you buoyant, keep you up on top of the water.
When you consider how brutal the course has been over 2 days, you wonder where they are finding their energy. They know they must fight off exhaustion if they are to finish, because even when they do finish, it is just one leg of the course. Just one team will achieve victory, but each competitor tastes the satisfaction of a terrain well traveled and a challenge well met.
I thought alders were bad.
Rest must wait, because the challenge continues. The team must run to the finish line. And so they do in a most beautiful part of Alaska. Not all of Kodiak's first settlers understood how fragile a rugged wilderness could be. Their objective was to tame an unconquered landscape. Thousands of years later, an effort is being made to nurture Kodiak's resources, to live in harmony with a land that has never failed to provide.